Hey guys, I've got a really interesting game to share with you today. I've had a bad run at my chess in the last couple of days. Yesterday I was just feeling really lousy, and my eyes were tired, and really I shouldn't have carried on playing, but you know what it's like. We love playing chess, so sometimes it's okay to lose as long as you take it in good spirits. I didn't. I became grumpy. But anyway, so I decided to play a few games today. So I'm now down below 1450 for the first time in a while. But this game is an absolute stormer. I really go for the throat with my opponent. It's a 10-minute rapid game. He actually plays pretty well and just refuses to give up. And it could have gone either way, but let me take you through it. So this is a game using the Danish Gambit, one of the most aggressive openings that I play. So we've got e4, e5. Now I thought, come on, let's go for it. The Danish Gambit with d4. E takes d4, and now c3. D takes c3, so I've now given up 2 pawns. Bishop out to c4. Now, very often black will sometimes take that pawn, and you can recapture with the bishop. An alternative is, instead of bringing the bishop out, you can play it a little bit more maybe solidly by capturing the pawn with a knight, so you're only down 1 pawn at that point. But anyway, so now we have queen out to f6. So this is obviously, it's defending that pawn. So if this pawn wants to take, I can't recapture with the bishop. I'll lose my bishop, and that won't be good. So I now capture the pawn with the knight. And the great thing in the Danish is this knight very often wants to come to d5, where it's both attacking the queen and attacking c7. Okay, so my opponent now is also in an aggressive mood, brings out his bishop to c5. So he's looking for queen takes f2, checkmate. And obviously we don't want that. So knight to f3 blocks the queen's passage down there. Also gets me ready to castle, and I do have a nice development lead at this point. I've got 3 minor pieces out, whereas black's got a minor piece and a queen. And as we all know, bringing your queen out early can be a recipe for getting kicked around. So my opponent now plays the quiet a6. So clearly he doesn't want my knight or my bishop coming to the b5 square, which I get, but it still allows knight to d5. I'm hitting the queen and c7. So what can the queen do? One option is to come all the way back here. But the queen could also come to a couple more squares. And here the queen comes to c6. And now we just keep piling on the pressure against poor Queenie. Knight to e5 hits the queen again. Look at how these minor pieces are just charging into black's territory. Okay, so now the queen does not have a lot of squares. You can go there, can't go there, can't go there, can't go there because of my queen. Okay, so black decides to sack his bishop. Okay, so I guess the idea is, if king takes the bishop, the queen can maybe come here with check. Okay, so I take, and indeed the queen goes there. But these pieces are all quite nicely protected. The pawn's protecting that knight, that bishop's protecting the knight as well, that knight's protecting the bishop. This knight is currently undefended, so I'm in check. I need to do something. And if you saw my video that I posted yesterday about front foot play, you always want to be developing pieces, throwing pieces at your opponent, giving your opponent problems, and making them constantly block and parry your attacks. So bishop to e3 here, and this queen is now in a minefield of attacks. Yeah, I've lost my my castling rights, but that's all. You kind of expect that quite often in the Danish. So now the queen slides across to a5, still clinging on to the defense of the c7 square. Now I bring my queen to f3, and now I've got another threat. Queen takes f7, which would be check, and the only legal response would be king to d8, and then queen f8 would be checkmate. So now black has to block something else. Knight to f6, and now pawn to b4. Now I could have played that on the previous move actually, Because what's interesting now is that the queen can't go there because of the knight, can't go there because of the bishop, can't go there or there because of the pawn. So the queen is forced to go either to a4 or a3, and that means that she's going to be giving up the defense of c7. Queen a3 is played. Now knight takes c7, check. King moves across. Now what I probably should have done at this point is simply grab the rook, but I decided to get fancy, and I threw in the other fork as well. So knight takes f7. This is stuff that can happen when you get both your knights onto the 5th rank, when you get into your opponent's half of the board. Now it allows the king to capture my knight. I don't have to capture the rook straight away because I can just pivot my bishop onto f4 with check. King can't go here because of the knight, can't go there or there. So the king is going to be forced to come out into the board. Oh, actually, no, there's a block. Yeah, because if the king had come, say here, I'd have had a pawn fork on the king and the knight, and it would have been very awkward. But you can see how desperate this is now becoming for black. But I can simply just grab the pawn, right? Because the knight is attacking that square. I had 2 pieces looking at that square, and black's in check again. So now we have king comes forward. You can probably see the next move. So there you go. Yeah, this is the beautiful thing. So with that check, of course, I've opened up an attack on the queen. King comes there. I mean, there are lots of other options as well, but this is definitely the best one. Grab the queen. Knight snatches my pawn. So this knight is defending that bishop. Okay, but he's got 2 attackers on it now. He's got king and knight. So I move, obviously that comes with check, I have to move my king. And now we have a bit of an exchange. So I lose a minor piece there, but I've still got a queen. And look at this black king right in the middle of the board. Rook to d1 check, king slides across. Bishop to d5 check, king slides across. I think a best move now might have actually been queen to here, preventing the king from hiding away. I make probably an inaccurate move there with queen a5. This allows the king to go and hide on a7, and I don't have a light squared bishop a dark squared bishop to attack with. So I come in with my pawn. Now what I'm hoping for is pawn to b6 checkmate. I mean, how often do you get to checkmate with a pawn? It's really cool. But the knight comes out to protect that square. I simply move my bishop to hit the knight, and a good move now for my opponent blocks the pawn's progress with knight to b6. We swap off a couple of bishops. I guess I could have also just opened things up by capturing the pawn on a6 with my pawn, but instead I come in with my rook to hit the knight. Rook comes across with check, and now beautiful, great move by my opponent, a fork on the queen and the rook. Now I'm thinking at this point maybe I should have just played b6. Oh, I do play b6. There you go. b6 check means the king now has to move, but the fork is still on. So I couldn't see any way of defending both pieces. So now I'm up a queen for a rook, but I've got all the mobility. I just do have to be very careful now not to get checkmated. So king comes up here, king again. Now I think the computer wanted me to move my king back here, maybe with the idea of being able to protect it with g3, and that might have been an idea, but I'm feeling pretty comfortable now. Now what I do have to be careful of is obviously the rook fork here. And my opponent really should have played now rook to f6, I think, which would have forced queen takes rook, pawn takes queen, king takes, and I'd have only been then 1 pawn up at this point in the game. However, you've got to be careful as well. Look at this. This pawn is covering the king's escape squares, so just dropping queen or rook onto the back rank could be checkmate. So my opponent here plays rook to g5, which is odd. It allows my king to go and hide in the corner. Okay, so now we have the rook comes back to the back rank, because clearly, I could have just dropped my queen onto here or here, and that would have been potentially checkmate. So I bring my rook across now to threaten his rook. Now, he cannot capture my rook. Okay, so this is I'm offering a sacrifice, because then queen to d8 or to f8 would have been check. The king can't move to here, so the only move possible would be to move his rook back, and then I simply capture it with checkmate. Now, rook comes across, I advance my queen to attack the rook comes back there, rook to c8, but it's too little too late now, and I capture the rook. There's no legal move other than to capture, and then we have a lovely checkmate there. So fun for the whole family with the Danish Gambit. I absolutely love this opening, and especially if you're feeling a bit angry and aggro, then this is just a great way to unleash your frustration on the chessboard. Do have a go. Give it a spin. If you've never played the Danish, I've got a few videos on it, because it is one that I love. And let me know how you do. But thank you for watching. Just thought I'd share. This is definitely my game of the day. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you've learned one or two things. And I'll see you soon.